So I would say, I don't know, what was it? 1 or 2 months ago. Our time is just all over the
Probably like
place.
4 or 5.
But we started watching Dota
Oh
on
no, yeah, that was a couple
Netflix,
months ago. Yeah.
um,
Which,
which we finished it.
to preface, we know nothing about the game.
I don't, and I'm not interested. I'm not a MOBA person.
No. Uh, so we know nothing about the game or any of the lore that comes from the game. Though we did do a decent dive into some of the written lore that's
But
online.
this is very timely. I thought was really good.
Yeah, I was surprising. I enjoyed it. I
Um,
mean, it has a little extra stuff that I don't care for.
the storytelling was not.
The storytelling did kind of suffer in terms of pace. It was so fast.
Yeah, the pacing
And
wasn't quite right. They would blow through a bunch of stuff.
it felt like it was relying on people's knowledge of the games.
Maybe I won't
Maybe.
know. So
And so there's actually a lot that we studied off the TV show. So we would like Google like what is this thing? What is that thing? And that was tons of fun. Really like their world building.
but yeah, their
You-
world building was interesting. What were you gonna say?
You wanted to bring up a thing of the
I
MCU.
did. In fact, I'm glad we were on the same page. So I want to bring this up. So Dota does something interesting that I think. Yeah, I'm gonna scoot a little closer here. I'm sliding away.
Getting set up.
But I'm getting set up. That I think this is important. My camera light went off. Is it still going?
As you paused in a really funny place.
B-roll.
Technical glitches.
I know. Oh, all the things behind the scenes that nobody sees. Because I guarantee other people have these problems.
Oh, easy. Definitely.
But anyway, so I want to bring this up. So Dota does something really great that I'm just like, why didn't the MCU do this? So this goes into something else we saw, which is Ant-Man, which we're getting into later phases, which are dealing with the multiverse, which hasn't gone as well because you've got multiple problems where you have Doctor Strange came out the same year as Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's universally agreed Oscars are done. Everywhere All at Once, which is a hard title to say,
Yes. Just call it everything.
is an amazing multiverse story. I haven't seen it, but apparently it's amazing.
People love it. I'm not interested in it
Yeah.
myself, but people love it.
But people love it. Doctor Strange, and we did a review on that, was not. We liked it, but we didn't love the whole multiverse
We talked
aspect
about it,
of
but
it.
we didn't actually do a video.
Yeah, and so Ant-Man dives into that, and we'll talk about Ant-Man later, but here's my problem with the multiverse. The stakes are all over the place. We're not sure what's true, what's not, because if someone lives in another multiverse, then you can just bring them in, and then they're alive again. And Dota does something really interesting. It does this whole rebirth, reincarnation version of the multiverse, because you have this the Invoker, who is this mage who keeps not him himself, but through the way that the story does, the universe is destroyed and reborn time and time again, except for him, and he's kind of the one pulling the strings.
It's similar to Gaia in Horizon Zero Dawn. This wasn't the first time the Earth had been reborn. This was like the 300 something iteration.
Yeah, and so I wish the MCU would have done this. So if anybody out there, has some pull to talk to Kevin Feige, I don't know if there's time to correct it, but I would have liked to have seen it more important. Like the current multiverse saga, we don't care about these worlds or universes being destroyed, but Dota brings up something very interesting. It's like, because some of the characters, when they get, we'll just say, transported to a different universe, in case you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it, it's a little complicated to explain in a short form. They remember. And they remember the love that they had, and they remember the relationships that they had, and they remember the people that were there. And sometimes it's for the better, because like they'll be like, oh, my father's alive. Oh, this person's alive. Oh, this person, we're not hateful enemies anymore.
But too often, they're remembering everything that they lost.
But yeah, they will keep remembering everything that they lost. And the dragon characters, which, come on, dragons make everything better.
Everything's better with dragons.
The dragons were amazing, and before we get into
Design
them,
was so good.
one of them, because they call humans as not a term of endearment, just to point out how small we are. He calls them mouse.
Little mouse.
Yes, he's like little mouse. He's like, you keep focusing on everything that was and not on what is. And you keep saying, I've lost so much, but look at how much you've gained. He's like,
I know.
One
of my favorite characters is brought back in the second iteration, so I was like, yay!
But then they're like, he's like, what is more real? What you have now or what was?
Yeah.
And the correct answer is both. So if they're both just as real, you're fighting for something that, I'm sorry, is gone. So be grateful for what you had. It was such a great message.
It was a very good moral.
There was a lot of messages in that show that I quite enjoyed.
His title was glorious, too.
Yes, we'll talk about that. But the way that they did the multiverse made everything that happened before important to the character, so it was important to us, but allowed them to progress forward and change things and bring characters back that made it natural and understanding, and also bring in new characters that you're just like, oh, okay. Or reiterations of characters, because different people became these different things.
Yeah, one who was just a normal person became a goddess.
Yeah, and so there is a season 4 at some point, I think this year, so we're going to be talking about it
this year.
But they did the multiverse so well. When I was done, I was like, why didn't the MCU do that? Because they killed it on their first 3 phases. They needed to maintain the importance of those phases, but moving on.
So very similar to the way I'm okay with the Dragon Prince saying that King Harrow is dead because his sacrifice means something.
Yeah.
I'm not happy that Gamora is going to be back because her sacrifice now means nothing. Yes, she's a different Gamora and she doesn't remember Quill, but we all know how that story's going to go. They're going to get back together.
But see, because it's the same character and everything's still the same, it doesn't mean anything.
If anybody deserves to have a loved one come back, though, it's flippin' Thor with flippin' Loki.
A great example, so spoilers in case you haven't seen Dota, Marcy dies. It's very analogous to Gamora.
It's so sad.
So Gamora sacrifices herself. Marcy sacrifices herself.
She doesn't.
Well,
Invoker kills her.
Yes, but
as a way of forcing.
That's because she jumped in there to protect the princess, and then that was the thing that got the thing. I think
he just grabbed them. Him grabbed her and the.
Well, in my mind, it's a sacrifice, and I'm going to say that it is because it still works for the story.
It does.
Either way, she died. Whether of circumstances of her own volition or not, she died.
And then learning more about her history, and I like her even more.
Yeah, but those sacrifices, the difference is they didn't just bring Marcy back, be like, oh, didn't mean anything. It was a whole new universe, and so it meant something to the character. You're back.
Yeah,
I thought I lost you.
She remembered that she's like, oh, Marcy, you're dead. And she's crying and she's hugging Marcy and she's like, you have no idea how important you are to me. And I was just like, yes, because this girl has been there with you for flipping ever.
The entire time, yeah.
And she's like beastly strong. Marcy's like the coolest.
She's pretty great. But that was the difference that I took away. Was that if you form a new universe and you're swapping out characters who made these impactful changes before, the only way for them to mean something is if they mean something to the character. And so, yes, Gamora means something to Peter, but that's not the point. It wasn't that Gamora meant something. It was the loss of Gamora that meant something. They hadn't quite figured out their whole love triangle thing yet.
Well, so the other thing, though, too, is it became very one-sided. Quill.
That pill.
Quill knows everything, still loves this person who looks like this new Gamora, blah, blah, blah. It's very one-sided, and Gamora's like, I don't know who the heck you are. Stop it. In the second iteration of Marcy and the princess, they both didn't know that there was anything wrong until later on when the princess has the remember thing happen, right?
Right.
So it was a whole new relationship between the two of them that was similar to what was once before, but it didn't become a one-sided hounding, like, I need you to love me back kind of thing. It was a new world.
So it was good. We really liked it. We'll definitely be talking about season 4 whenever it comes out.
I think the magic system was pretty solid too for a lot of things. Some things I was kind of like, why does that?
It
But
was
then,
good. Oh,
yeah.
and for us Dragonsteel fans, I want to point out something that also I'm a little worried about, but I have trust in Brandon.
Brandon Sanderson, Dragonsteel, that's his company.
Yes. So the Invoker in this series, if you haven't seen it, in my mind, is perhaps the true form of wit. And what I mean by that is the character's not necessarily witty. They're not goofy like wit.
Yeah, none of that stuff.
None of that. But he is a genius. He's been around since the beginning, and he has intention. And I mean that specifically because the Invoker is doing everything he does on purpose, including the mistakes, which we've talked about in Rhythm of War, just this last one. He gets caught off guard by
Spoilers, Terravodium.
Sure, by Terravodium. He gets caught off guard by Terravodium. I don't think it's really a spoiler at this point, but we'll say it anyway.
The community likes people to spoil things anyway because there's always new people coming in.
Okay. Well, he gets caught off guard. I like to think him being caught off guard may not necessarily be a part of the plan, but he was still prepared for it.
Yeah, not that it was unexpected, but hopefully it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, much like the Invoker in Dota, things happen that he didn't know were going to happen, but he's like, doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter that you have new magic, new powers, you've merged with the dragon, that you have new friends, that you remember things. It doesn't matter because you are so out of your depth. But he did it to the point because it was painful and personal. There was something else that we watched where I'm like, that reminds me of Wit 2. I can't remember what it was.
The main wit thing that I think of every time is Kingsglaive.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, but this was and so it makes me a little worried, right? Because I was then thinking future Brandon problems. Someday he will write the whole of Wit's story.
Yeah, it's going to be Dragonsteel.
And we will know what he's doing, why he's doing it, blah, 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 blah.
Who was Hoyd before him?
I hope it's a good story. I hope that the reason he's going from place to place is emotional and moving, and we understand, oh, that's who you are. And this is what you want. Whether good or bad, or like I've thrown out there a few times, what if he's a secret bad guy? Whatever.
Okay.
But I just want it to be good.
Yes.
My worry is that Wit is he's just there.
Yeah, he needs to actually have, I'm assuming he does, but he needs to have a goal.
So my worry is he'll actually be, no offense to the Lord of the Rings, a Gandalf. Gandalf is there. Things happen around Gandalf. Bilbo finds the ring. Gandalf suspects after a while, and then he goes off.
Bilbo just kept finding stuff that Gandalf is like, where are you finding these things?
Well, and so he helps Bilbo along the way, and this and that, and then he gives it to Frodo, and he helps him along the way, and this and that. But it's not their story, or it's not Gandalf's story, it's their story. So Gandalf is just kind of a MacGuffin to move the story along. And so if you look at what was his motivations, his motivation was he wanted to do the right thing. That's not a great story. Like if you had to write the story of Gandalf, like if you take all the lore, sure, it's interesting, but is it a good story? I don't know. Could somebody make it into a good story? Probably.
Yeah.
But
it can't just be like when it comes to stories, like as a person in general, if your whole purpose is I just want to do good things, okay.
Or
great.
I just want to win, or
yeah, like whatever, great.
I need his motivation to be good.
Yeah, for my stories and my characters, I want there to be a reason. My bad guys can't just be I'm evil to be evil. Sorry, that doesn't work.
And spoilers for Dota, the Invoker's entire motivation is his daughter. And it's very grounded in a feeling people can understand. He's like, I don't care. I will burn this sucker to the ground.
I will burn this world another 11,000 times to have more time
until it gets to the end, which I love the ending of season 3. The ending of season 3 is so good because they try everything. They throw everything at him, blah, 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 till the Invoker's like, you guys just can't win. Would you just hold still?
Yeah, would you just hold still?
Yeah. He's like, you're never going to win. And they're like, we got it.
Shirt.
We've got the thing. That'll
She's
beat him.
sick.
She's sick. And he's like, I know. I've always known. Because they thought the whole premise is set up that he was fixing the world so that she wouldn't be sick.
And that
so
think that he thinks that she's fine.
And yeah, so by her growing up, she must not be sick. But she is. And so he's like, I know. I've always known. I just wanted a little more time. And it's heartbreaking.
It is.
You just turn this villain who has destroyed millions of worlds and universes
and
lives for a little more time with his daughter.
Every parent,
even if you're not a parent, even if you're just any person, a little more time with your loved one, a little more time with your parents, your siblings, your dog. It doesn't, like, everybody can understand that you're like, oh,
just a little more time.
Heartbreaking.
And then the words that she says back of we're all out of time, or our time is done.
Yeah.
Like, she is the only one who would be able to say that to him and him accept it.
And it was so good. And that's the end of season 3. Season 4 ends with a little bit of a cliffhanger, and I'm curious where they're going to go. So I know we just spoiled it, but if you haven't watched it, you should.
Father of Fire.
So yes, let's talk about the Dota Dragons. So the dragons are kind of layered in this. You have just your worms, which are your regular dragons around the world.
Yeah, so you basically have hatchlings, younglings, adults, and elders.
Yeah, and so your elders, which they call their eldworms, good word, not a great word.
It's fine, though.
But they have their council of all the types of dragons.
Yeah, there's the 8 top eldworms, right?
And
one from each element.
Well, yes, and they tie in the dragons themselves to the magic system, which was brilliant. That was so good. I'm like, this is Brandon type stuff.
Yeah, they're the embodiment of the 4 elements and the 4 orders.
And the 4 fundamental forces.
That's what it is.
And so I'm like, this is great. This is awesome. So the main dragon that you end up getting to know is Slyrak, and he's called the Father of Fire. I'm just like, that is a great name.
The first time we heard Father of Fire, we were both like, oh,
that is a great name.
We were both writing it down, like, do we use this in our bone books?
Well, and I've heard this before, but they call their collection the Thunder.
Yes.
And they speak and they speak about them as if it is a thing. The Thunder speaks. The Thunder said. Yeah.
Which is glorious. So, who's actually Paolini, who kind of first connected the term thunder to a group of dragons. Yeah. And so I've been using Thunder of Dragons in, like, my own woodworking
for
stuff,
years,
like, all the time. And so then they were like, what the Thunder said. I was like, what did the Thunder say?
Yeah. So it was great naming conventions.
You can tell we're dragon fans.
We are dragons make everything better.
Their designs themselves.
The designs were really good.
So good.
The voices of each individual Eldworm was great.
Like the Chaos one, 100% Chaos.
All of them were good.
Oh yeah.
And in each motivation of each dragon, while we don't get to know all of them specifically, we get to know a lot of them. You're just like, yes, and yes.
Times 8.
and how they tie in, whenever magic pops up, ultimately they kind of loop it back around to the dragons. And you're just like, yes. Like, it's so good.
I had to go look for all their 3D turns and stuff because I was like, ooh, I want to look more at it.
And their dragon designs are so unique that I'm just over here drooling. I'm like, ah.
I know, we're like, what can we use from this in our video game? We're like, take notes of that. Take notes of that.
Yeah, it's like, man, good stuff. Just I applaud them. It was awesome.